Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ryan, and today we'll be discussing the 2024 schedule for the LSU Tigers. LSU went 9-3 this year. They had the Heisman winner with Jaden Daniels. He had a great year, and the main flaws that LSU had this year was their defense. Everything else was good or great to some levels. I mean, Malik Neighbors led the country in receiving yards. They had a great year offensively, but defensively they were not there at all, which is kind of surprising. That was not supposed to be like that to start off the year. They had a lot of talent, and they just didn't do anything with it defensively, which was very weird to see. But let's talk about the 2024 schedule and everything they have. Jaden Daniels, I'm pretty sure, is off to the draft, so they'll have a different quarterback in, which will be interesting to see how all that plays out. And you open up the year on a Sunday, 7:30 on ABC, against USC. It's going to be at Las Vegas, and we've seen from the USC quarterback how he played against Louisville. He's very good. He had over 400 yards and 6 touchdowns. That is a very good performance versus a top 15 team. Very impressive stuff, and they won. That's a big thing to see. So this could be a tough matchup for LSU. Do not undervalue this team. That could be a very good matchup. Then you have the next week you have Nicholls State. I mean, you have Nicholls Colonies or whatever that. It's an easy win. It's going to be an easy win for LSU to bounce back if they lose or continue their streak if they win. Then you start off your SEC play. You're at South Carolina. That's a tough place to play at. It's going to probably be an early game, I would say. South Carolina is probably not going to be as good as they were 2 years ago, or maybe not as good as last year. But Shane Beamer was a very good recruiter. They kind of let down, the letdown year last year. Rattler's off to the draft. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. A lot of players are leaving South Carolina. I'm interested to see how that's going to turn out. But it's going to be a tough environment to play at, but LSU should be able to win that game, I would say. Then you're at home versus UCLA. That'll be an interesting matchup. I remember a couple years ago you played them at UCLA, and it did not go well. UCLA won. So maybe it's time to get some revenge for that. UCLA is not going to have a bad team. They have a pretty good team right now. Chip Kelly's going to get his guys ready, but it's going to be a tough place to play at for UCLA, of course. They don't go and play at LSU often at all. So it'll be interesting to see. Then you're at home versus South Alabama, and then you have your bye week. And then after the bye week, you start a complete conference schedule. It's at home versus Ole Miss. Ole Miss this year technically actually beat LSU. It was in a very high scoring game. Defense held up late enough for Ole Miss to be able to win the game. That's some big stuff right there for them, and it's interesting to see if that's going to play out again. Because Ole Miss usually does not beat LSU, but it was a big win. That was probably you could argue that's Lane Kiffin's biggest win he's had at LSU. At Ole Miss. So see if Brian Kelly and LSU can get the revenge upon that. They just got to get a better defense. They really got to get a better defense. That's the main thing. And then you have the rivalry game, the battle for the boot. It looks like that's the name. At Arkansas. Arkansas lost KJ Jefferson, but they're getting some people like Danico Slaughter to come in. He's coming from Tennessee, and their defense might improve. Their defense definitely might improve, but their quarterback situation is probably not going to be good. They're probably going to have one of the bottom quarterbacks in the SEC unless something changes, and that could only benefit LSU because they're probably going to have to score a lot of points. LSU is. And they got a pretty good backup. They got a pretty good guy that was backing up Jaden Daniels. So if he's staying and he's playing, I have a good feeling that LSU should be able to take care of business in this one. Arkansas could improve. Could have a surprise season, but I just don't think that's going to happen. Then you're at Kyle Field, which is Texas A&M if you don't know. Interesting. They usually play them at the end of the year, but now you're playing them early on. It's one of the strange things about this schedule, about these schedules change with these new additions and stuff. That you're gonna have different times for big games. It's not gonna be the same time as usual. Like we've looked at other stuff before, and like Florida's playing Tennessee in the middle of October. That never happens. It's always the third Saturday of September, but it changes. And you're at Kyle Field. Can be interesting to see how Texas A&M does without their Jimbo Fisher. And they had a lot of close losses. and that they could have won. They definitely could have won some of those games, and maybe they were able to win those. If they are, that's going to be big. But they lost Evan Stewart. He's in the transfer portal, and he might even go to Ole Miss. If he goes to Ole Miss, that's very bad for the SEC because they're getting the best transfers out there. They got a lot of guys from Tennessee, a lot of guys from other places. And if you get Evan Stewart, that's huge for them because you have an elite #1 receiver out there, which would be crazy to get. But I've seen other names get thrown out for him. I know Oregon, USC. I know Bama and Texas were in the mention at one point, but it doesn't look like they're anymore. Tennessee got thrown around. Florida State, I think, did too. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen with Evan Stewart. But that'll be definitely a loss for A&M. But then you have a bye week, and that's a very important bye week because right after that, you play Alabama. This year against Alabama, I'm not sure what would happen if Jayden Daniels doesn't get hurt. If Dallas Turner doesn't hit him in the head, I'm not sure what happens. I don't think they win the game though. But he gave them fits, gave them a lot of fits, but who had more fits throughout the game was LSU's defense trying to catch up with Jalen Milroe. And I thought that was going to work because you have Harold Perkins, who should spy on him the whole time, but he didn't do that. It's very strange how they ran their systems. But now you're at home against them. This is always a great game. They're always close. It's one of the only one of 2-3 teams that can consistently keep a close game against Alabama. They might be the only team that can actually win the close games too. Seeing how bad Auburn's done recently in close games against Alabama, even at home. Even Jordan Hare Stadium cannot fix the badness that comes out of Auburn. This is insane. But Bama, I think, will be a better team than they are even this year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Then you're at Florida. That's a big rivalry game. And this year, you absolutely rolled Florida. Keep that up. Keep up that good work because I don't like Florida at all. I don't like Bama, but Florida I just despise. And Jayden Daniels had over 500 yards that game. Very impressive stuff. I think that game won in the Heisman. That was his key Heisman game that he had. Even though it wasn't against a great team, it was a rivalry game. He absolutely dominated them. But playing in the swamp's never easy, as I wouldn't know. So yeah. And then you have at home versus Vanderbilt. That's going to be an interesting game there. If Vanderbilt is any better than they were this year, they might win 3 games. That's how bad they were. So LSU should win this one easily. It shouldn't take more than a quarter and a half to win it. And then you end off the year versus Oklahoma. You're at home in that game. I'm intrigued to see how that's going to play out because Oklahoma, we saw them play yesterday. They had their quarterback, Jackson Arnold. I'm sure that's his name. He had a lot of good throws, but he threw a lot of interceptions and turnovers. He had 4 turnovers, but he made a lot of good throws. Got to work on his consistency, and he'll probably look the best as he can the late in the year they get, because Oklahoma has a lot of tests early on in the year to get them used to everything and stuff of that nature. Oklahoma had 6 turnovers yesterday against Arizona. That's bad, very bad, very bad. So yeah, I think LSU can have a very good year. They got to fix their defense, and I have no doubt that they will. It's probably a fluke year when it comes to their defense, but you're not going to get this type of offense performance to that level probably for a couple years. So if you can repeat it, that's great. You're probably going to need it, but comparing the schedule to a lot of others, it's not as difficult as a lot of other teams have. I know Florida has an egregious schedule, tough for toughness wise. Bama has a pretty tough schedule, like they always do. Tennessee has a tough schedule, but LSU, you got to avoid Georgia, and you got to avoid Tennessee. Georgia, that's the main one, of course. Tennessee's kind of a mid-level right there. You missed on Texas. That's big, too. You have a lot of schools like that could give you a chance, but you didn't have to play them, which is very important. But you have a lot of schools like USC and UCLA that could give you fits because you're just not used to playing that against that type of style. So, yeah, we're going to see how LSU plays against Wisconsin, and then I'll probably be able to tell what happens later in the year. Next year. See what happens there. It's going to be interesting to see. I'll be covering a lot more teams than just this, a lot more than just outside the SEC. But I'm sorry for the SEC, they'll work out from there. So, yeah, this is my schedule. This is just covering the schedule, give my own little analysis of it. So yeah, hope you all have a great day. Stay safe, y'all. Put in the comments what you feel about this. Give your own opinions and all that. Hope you all have a great day. Stay safe, y'all, and God bless y'all.